Hi, welcome to Manas Shil YouTube channel. Before we start, kindly subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you. Let's start the video. If you haven't watched the previous video, I'll link it in the description box, or you can click here. Tensura Volume 19. Chapter 1. The First Battle. Ranga vs Vega. Benimaru was the one I was worried about. His opponent seemed superior in all aspects, so I tried to observe the situation with universal perception, without looking at him. Jahal was wielding a ghastly blood-colored spear. I had no idea when, or from where he brought it out, but I could feel a tremendous power coming from that spear. It seems that the spear is called the Origin Blood Spear. The spear, given to me by the divine ancestor, will pierce you through, that's what he said. Oh, I see. Unlike me, it seemed the Seal-san was already aware of Benimaru's situation. Well, it's true that we couldn't be too careful, but we weren't necessarily in a bad situation. If worst came to worst, I still had Valdor, so even if I died, I could be revived. It could be said that I didn't have a high enough sense of danger, but it wasn't worth being impatient until I found a way to attack. And so, I continued my observations. I wasn't sure of what kind of existence Jahal was, but he didn't look uncomfortable, even though he had taken over footman. In other words, his movements were light, and his spear wielding was very good. Because I had increased my perception speed by several 100 million times, I could clearly see that he fought like an expert. It was hard to believe that he was using someone else's body, and that only made obvious just how troublesome Jahal was. And moreover, Jahal's existence value was over 3 times that of Benimaru's, and what's more, that spear, the Origin Blood, was estimated to have an existence value of more than 10 million. Such a weapon should be illegal. Since we were outside Ramras's labyrinth, I couldn't calculate the exact values, but the overall difference in strength between them was more than 4 times. It was only due to Benimaru's skill level, which was superior to mine, that the battle was barely feasible. In other words, if Benimaru did not have his Heat King, Amaterasu, he would have been defeated long ago. That's how troublesome this bastard Jahal was. If that was the case, I wanted to help him out right now. But I didn't have that kind of time, so I had no choice but to ask Benimaru to do his best. As for the other battles, well, this one was an indefinite draw. The mysterious woman who was fighting Leon looked just like Eltan, so I assumed that she was related to her. Surprisingly, she was just as powerful as an awakened demon lord. No, perhaps even more than that. She appeared to have an ultimate skill, and was doing her best against Leon without retreating single a step. Their fighting styles are very similar. I presume that they have a master-disciple relationship. I hadn't noticed it, because they were using different types of weapons, but now that you mention it, they might be very similar after all. Perhaps that woman was Leon's mentor, and their ultimate skills were of the same lineage. Since they were able to read the other's movements, they were stuck in an indefinite draw. There wasn't going to be an easy way to settle this. Any help couldn't be expected, but the fact that support wasn't immediately needed could be considered quite lucky. Rimuru-kun, right? If you can afford to observe all this, then shouldn't you help me out a bit? Oh, she's quite the perceptive person. She caught me scrutinizing their battle. I couldn't actually afford to do much either, but it's true that I had been observing the other battles, so it was hard to refute her. In that case, I had no choice but to answer as honestly as I could. I'm sorry. I didn't have anything better to do, so I couldn't help looking over my shoulder. Ha! What kind of nerves do you have to do something like that, when you can't even afford it? I had heard, from Ulchan, that you didn't have any common sense, but you really should take things more seriously. That was undeniably true. I wasn't expecting to be found out, so I had let my guard down, but it was certainly out of the ordinary to look away in the middle of a battle. I shall take your suggestions back with me, and consider them seriously. It sounds like you're not interested in reforming at all, but whatever. So, do you think you can win? Very perceptive, this one. I was planning to play it off lightly, but she saw right through me. I really had to start taking this more seriously, or Feldway was going to think I was crazy. Preparing for a possible counterattack, I answered her question. I can't at the moment. There's no room for an opening. Feldway snickered upon hearing that. Unexpectedly, he joined in on the conversation. I'm the one who should be surprised that you're looking away while fighting me. And yet, you say that there's no room for an opening. How ridiculous. From whose mouth are you speaking from? Shut up. It's only because I showed you my trump card, and you blocked it so easily. If you have just let yourself get hit by that, I wouldn't have had to go through all this trouble. Don't make me laugh. If you bastards hadn't interfered with me, our plan would have come to fruition much earlier. In the first place, you should realize how many of our plans have been foiled because of your servant, the Black King, War. It seems that I was too aggressive and had made him angry. I had nothing to do with those Diablo incidents. It is the owner's job to take responsibility. No, we haven't known each other for that long. I have a policy for not taking on unnecessary responsibility. I firmly insisted that I was not at fault here. You really are a cheeky one. I agree. You're pretty incredible. I almost respect you for being so relaxed in this kind of situation. That was not a compliment. I mean, you should just be focusing on Leon. Just kidding. I'd never say that out loud, because that would be like treading on the tail of a snake. By the way, who are you? Oh, me. I'm Mel-chan's mom. You can just call me Sylvia. That was a surprising introduction. Well, elves were a long-lived species, so I suppose it could be the case, but I still felt like I wouldn't easily be able to nod my head in agreement, even if Eltan called her mother right in front of me. The common sense of my previous life got in the way too much. When I glanced over at her, I saw that she was fighting a very close battle to the extent that it was strange that she even found the time to talk. Both Leon and Sylvia San were dodging each other's swords by the slimmest of margins and counter-attacking, as if they had practiced it beforehand. This person seemed to have a lot of guts, if she could speak casually under such circumstances. So, do you think Leon will be able to pull through? You're his master, aren't you? Ah, you caught that. I won't deny that I'm his master, but I don't think I can do anything about this. To be honest, I didn't expect Leon Kun to be this strong. That response sounded playful, but it was probably the truth. Those two had been walking a tightrope since before we arrived, so it was no wonder that they had lost their concentration. The current state of equilibrium would collapse if any part of it was missing, so it certainly wasn't the time to be complacent. But then, I was left wondering what to do about Leon. I did have a plan for dealing with Leon, but I wasn't sure if I should go through with it. In any case, I wanted to aim for a more effective timing, but right now didn't seem to be the right time. The situation was severe, but we were still in equilibrium. I felt that, if I overreacted now, I might end up putting us all in danger. I would continue to wait and see about Leon. As I was making such a decision, I received a complaint from Benimaru. Rimuru-sama, I understand that you can afford to do so, but I'm in a really difficult spot here. How unusual for Benimaru to be complaining. Well, I guess it was understandable. A power difference of more than 4 times was too severe. It's bad. It's really bad. That's right. It was fortunate that Jahal specialized in flames, because it gave Benimaru an advantage in terms of compatibility. He would have been defeated long ago otherwise, so even the current situation was miraculous. Now then, what to do? The battle would be decided once the equilibrium was broken, but even I didn't have the strength to do so. I had a few hidden trump cards, but it was difficult to know when to use them. As for the opponents, aside from Leon, Feldway, and Jahal were too much at ease. We were overwhelmingly at a disadvantage. In that case, perhaps I should kill the enemies elsewhere and wait for someone to rush in, or even perform demon summoning, one of our trump cards, and call in Tensura. However, I was afraid that if I did that, my opponent would be able to do the same thing, and things would quickly go out of hand. After all, the best option was to wait and see for a while. Benimaru-kun, please do your best just a little longer. Wait, seriously, I can't bide that much time, you know. It's been a long time since I had heard such a pathetic reply coming from Benimaru. With that in mind, I began discussing with Seal-san again if there were any other ways to overcome this situation. Ranga, Kumara, and Saoi had separated from Rimuru, and each of them was heading to support a different battlefield. They did not consult with one another in particular, but it naturally decided on where to go, based on the general strength of the enemy. The opponent Ranga was headed for was Vega. He was the one who was giving off the strongest presence, even stronger than Ranga's. And as expected, it was the fiercest battleground. He seems to be stronger than me, but if we bide our time, Sao Dono and the others should be able to dispose of the enemy and rush to our aid. Ranga trusted his friends. That is why he was able to take on the strongest of opponents with no fear and no doubts. I shall assist you. Ranga shouted and jumped to Vega. Meadle was delighted by this. White Knight Meadle, the leader of the White Knights under Leon, had desperately been trying to recover, but there was a limit to how much time he could buy with his current strength. The 5 demon peers under Rain and Miss Aries' command, Misora, Squall, Ulrich, Alban, and Georg, were all as powerful as the old demon lords. However, their opponent, Vega, had an existence value of more than 10 million, and the difference in their abilities was too great. Tensura, the Do-class commander, was very talented as Rain's second in command. She was always looking after Rain, who tended to slack off, and she possessed a broad perspective with good leadership. But even so, there was no room for effective leadership when some of them had been crippled by Vega's attacks. In spite of this, the battle line did not collapse thanks to Tensura's efforts. And it was Meadle's restoration magic that desperately supported this. Normally, these proud demons were very individualistic, but with the cooperation of all 5 of them, they managed to maintain the front line, even making full use of illusion magic to deceive. However, when Ulrich and Alban fell at the same time, the burden on those who remained increased. Meadle's recovery magic could not keep up, and total annihilation was imminent. It was at this critical moment that Ranga intervened. "What the hell, you dog? You dare to interfere with me?" Vega was on a high. Now that he had so much power, he believed himself to be invincible. That's why he decided that one more monster wouldn't be much of a threat. But that was a mistake. Ranga's existence value was less than half of Vega's, but his combat experience was not to be underestimated. Because he was always lurking in Rimura's shadow, he had witnessed many battles. That is why Ranga was able to flexibly adapt his tactics to the enemy. This time, the strategic victory would be to get through this without any casualties. By understanding that, his role became more clear. Use me as a shield and regroup. Reinforcements will definitely come. My lord will not be defeated. Wagging his tail, Ranga assured them. With that alone, Tensura and the others understood that Rimuru had arrived. Tensura accurately read Ranga's intentions and figured out what the best course of action would be. I shall take your word for it. Meadle Dono, please concentrate on Ranga Dono. And with that, the tactics were swiftly rearranged, and the battle changed with Ranga as the focal point. From this point on, Vega's high would come to an end. This was because Ranga, whom Vega had initially dismissed as inferior, performed better than expected. Without thinking, Vega attempted to eliminate Ranga. By using his ultimate skill Evil Dragon King Ozzy, Dahaka to the fullest extent, he tried to subdue him with pure power. The ultimate skill, Evil Dragon King Ozzy Dahaka, was a skill acquired after Vega's upbringing. Vega was descended from the Magical Inquisitors, one of the Rosso's research achievements. He was a monster that possessed both monster and human characteristics, and could recover from any injury, as long as he was federal. It was a secret that Yuki had modified him to become a kind of imitation slime. Vega's whole body was a collection of minuscule magical bacteria. Therefore, he could regenerate freely, and, as long as a single part of his body remained, he could be revived without any problems. He was able to mimic the structure of living organisms, and depending on the probability, he could even acquire the skill of the opponent after predation. It was precisely because of this that Vega was able to acquire the ultimate skill Evil Dragon King Ozzy, Dahaka. The true value of this skill was that it absorbed the power of the eaten target, just like the Vega's essential nature. It was a power very similar to Rimura's gluttonous King Beelzebub, and was an aggregation of terrifying abilities such as ultra-speed thought, parallel thought, analyze and assess, organic domination, mass reproduction, skill absorption, and multi-layer barrier. It had an extremely high performance. If the victim had a physical body, its information could be read using organic domination, and its racial abilities could be acquired. Even if the victim was a spiritual life form, it was possible to steal away its energy using skill absorption, and even make its skills their own. On top of that, as long as there was an organic body to use as a material, the user could mass produce and manipulate replicas of themselves. The ultimate skill Evil Dragon King Ozzy Dahaka was a skill that, if it could be mastered, could help the wielder become as strong as they wished. If it could be mastered. Unfortunately, Vega hadn't had that much experience since he was born. He had grown at an alarming rate, and his power had only increased, but he had yet to master his own powers. Vega could only use organic domination to strengthen his body, analyze and assess to understand his enemies' weaknesses, and skill absorption to weaken his enemies. He also used ultra-speed thought unconsciously, so he was able to make good decisions, but unfortunately, he could not use parallel thinking, and was unable to claim victory despite having an overwhelming advantage. However, Vega himself was enjoying his strength, so much that he didn't even realize that he had missed his best chance. And with a vicious power, Vega's fist pierced through Ranga. Vega wondered at the lack of response. He should have pierced through him, but he couldn't feel anything. Let alone stealing energy, he could not even use analyze and assesses on the enemy. The reason for this was that Ranga was using his own abilities to the fullest. Ranga's ultimate skill, Stellar Wind King Haster, had the effect of transforming his body into a magical wind. Physical attacks would not work against Ranga, who had turned into a terrifying demonic wind that contaminated everything it touched. In fact, the moment something touched Ranga, it would be damaged by the death-calling wind. The current Ranga was magic itself. The logic was the same as that of Carrion's burst roar. He maintained his regular form and mass, but was transformed into a willful particle of destructive energy not unlike a spiritual life form. Even a simple physical attack would become an attack of great destructive power. One did not need an explanation to understand how terrifying this was. Furthermore, unlike with Carrion, this was not Ranga using a special move, but rather undergoing a change in state. Naturally, the rate of energy consumption would be higher, but there would be no restrictions placed on him just for entering a magical wind state. This was the power of someone who could utilize their skill to the fullest extent. Although Vega was superior in terms of existence value, Ranga was the winner in terms of ability. Hahaha, that fist doesn't seem to work on me, does it? Actually, Ranga was surprised. He had expected Vega to be stronger, and had been wary of him. Because Rimura was always so cautious, Ranga learned to imitate him. That is why he never let his guard down against Vega, who possessed more than twice the amount of energy as he did. On the contrary, he even suspected that this was a trap of some kind. Damn you. You have no respect, even though you're just a dog. And after Vega tried to hit him, he realized for the first time that the other party was an idiot. If he had hit Ranga, who had turned into magical wind, without thinking, the result would have been the same as hurting himself. Vega would have taken the damage on his own, and Ranga was left dumbfounded. In this case, the correct answer was to wrap your fist in a skill-enhanced ore, and then hit him. The same applied to attacking with weapons. Skills could only be dealt with by skills. If he was a spiritual life form, he could be as effective as an ultimate skill by increasing his energy, but Vega did not take any of that into consideration. If he had mastered his ultimate skill Evil Dragon King Ozzy Dahaka, he would not have shown such a disgraceful appearance. You fool. I thought you were playing a trick on me, but it looks like you were actually serious. In that case, I shall make my move at once. As soon as Ranga announced this, he began to run at full speed. He became a jet black wind that tossed Vega around, leaving the sound behind and filling the space with afterimages from the earth to the sky. Then, it became a howling that reverberated inside the space. Ranga amplified his own speed and destructive power through the sound and wind domination of the stellar Wind King Hastur, and then created a force field using spatial domination, while running at full speed. After that, he created a death storm within the force field by using weather domination for the final blow. This eventually led to the apocalypse that destroyed everything. This technique was called Apocalypse Howling. It was the most powerful individual attack technique that Ranga had devised. Incidentally, if one made a howling roar, they could also fire it as a directional beam. Normally, that would be the simpler and more correct way to use it. However, if one wanted to cause more damage, it was better to use a beam that was confined to a certain space, as was the case in this situation. By confining the target, there was no waste of energy, so a greater effect was to be expected. Vega took a direct hit from this, but surprisingly, he survived. Although he was not able to use the Evil Dragon King Ozzy Dahaka properly, he was still subconsciously affected by the skill in his body. Moreover, Vega could be characterized by his stubbornness. Although he was not left unharmed, he was able to regenerate his own body in time before being killed by activating organic domination in mass reproduction. His magicule count was not to be underestimated. Vega took a deep breath and bellowed with all his might. Shit. Then he glared at Ranga. Vega took a deep breath to calm himself down, and then spat out. Damn it. It's been a long series of continuous battles, and it looks like I'm tired too. I'll call it a draw for today, so prepare yourself for the next time we meet. See ya. Vega's cowardice was the only reason why he was so good at sensing danger. Realizing that the situation had become disadvantageous for him, he immediately decided to run away. Ranga had no objections. From the fact that he had withstood his own strongest move, he could see that Vega was superior to him in terms of existence value. He understood that he could not defeat Vega unless he was able to finish him off with that current blow. In that case, there was no need to push himself. His tactical goal was to buy time, so if he could force Vega to retreat, then that would be considered a success. Therefore, Ranga's decision to not engage Vega was the correct choice. Thus, the battle against Vega, the fiercest of the battlefields, came to an end. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoy it.